All right. I have got a Barnes and Noble haul for you. So it's a short one. It's a short video, but so many books. Barnes and Noble. I bought a notebook. Bought a notebook. So it's gonna be a journal for uses. Um, Mostly I like selling journals on eBay. So what I do is I buy cheap journals from uh Barnes and Noble and I like selling them on eBay. Um, I bought this book. So if you've never checked out my eBay, I like selling stuff on there. I haven't checked it out recently. I probably could. Um, but my cat is really interested in that. Hi. But I bought couple, couple of poetry books. And one is because in my poetry lately, I've been talking about this thing called Earth Song. And I think that someone had other poets have talked about Earth Song before. Um, I I I get stuck on this thing about Earth Song. It's just like this idea that, but so there's this thing, someone wrote a book about birdsong. Larity, Larity, why? Come on, stop bunny kicking me. Stop, 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 stop. Ah, okay, okay, all right. So they talk about like Earth Song, but she wrote a book about, he wrote a book about, Sebastian Faulks. Oh, it's a play. It's a play. I thought it was a poetry book because it was so short. Um, Based on the Sebastian Faulks international best-selling novel Birdsong, tells the story of a soldier haunted by his past. As a young man, Stephen Raysford was caught up in an all-consuming love affair in Amiens, France. As the First World War unfolds, Stephen finds himself pulled closer and closer back to Amiens, back to the valley of the Somme, as a tale of one man's quest to understand how far mankind can go and still call itself human. This powerful and compelling story is about courage, friendship, love, and loss brought to the stage for the first time in a version by Rachel Wagstaff. Birdsong was first performed in West End 2009 to 2010, then it toured Britain from 2012 to 2015. I feel like I've heard about this before, but yeah. So I want to read it. Birdsong. Then I bought a poetry book, Oceanic. I say this word a lot. It's part of my vocabulary. So to see Oceanic, um, they mention Oceanic in a book. by Nietzsche, because his friend described the feeling of God as being oceanic, um, in the book Society and Her Discontents. He describes his friend describes the feeling of God. And so Nietzsche didn't have a sense of, because he had removed God from his life, he had killed God. So Nietzsche didn't have this sense of overwhelming religious experience. So he didn't have that sense of that oceanic feeling that his friend felt with religion or God. And so the first time I felt that oceanic feeling um was back in 2017. And I understood kind of what his friend was describing as oceanic. Um that push and pull of something greater than yourself. And so I think about that word oceanic every so often, that push and pull of waves, um, of something greater than yourself, of being pushed along by something greater than yourself. Um, and sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. But whenever I feel it, it does feel very tumultuous at times. It feels as though I my life lacks that control of feeling something greater. Um, Perhaps that's just the nature of my life in general. So when I saw Oceanic, I thought of that book, Society and Its Discontents. Um, so I'm curious to see how this poetry collection handles the topic of God. But So here's a analysis of the or the synopsis of the text. In her fourth collection, Amy, oh, I'm not even gonna try and say her last name, hums a bright blue note, sensuous love song to the earth and its inhabitants. Oceanic is both the title and ethos of radical inclusion, inviting the grief of an elephant, the icy eyes of a scallop, the ribs of a silver silo, the bright flash of painted fingernails. She approaches her encyclopedic range of subjects with the reverence of life and the material world, but she does not shy away from which startles and disturbs, whether the heat and combustion of human desire or the shock of animal extinction. With heartfelt directness, Oceanic speaks to each reader's place in the extraordinary neighborhood which we all belong, ecstatically, emphatically naming what it means to love in a world in peril. So, perhaps she won't deal with the nature of God necessarily, but it's talking about the material world, the world around us. But it's very interesting, something to think about. So, I found a copy of The Water Dancer. Barnes and Noble is set up so weird these days. So they had all of Ta-Nehisi Coates's books um, in social sciences, except for this one, which was in the fiction section, because it is his one fiction books that he's written. So that, and so the way that they have the store set up, they don't have the shelves like in rows anymore. They have these like meandering. So they have like you have to like go around the young adult and romance, and like things are like cordoned off, and so I had to walk all the way around the outside of the store in order to get to the fiction section, and I had to walk all the way onto the other side just to get to the one section. And I was like looking for his book, and I finally found it, and there was one copy of his book, and I snatched it up, and I was like, "That's my first read. It's my first read that I'm looking for 2025." Um, so at the beginning of 2025, I'm going to start reading this book, um, which you're probably watching this after the beginning of the year, but as I'm reading or, making this video, it's only the 29th, so, uh, of December. So I purchased it in advance and I'm planning on reading it at the beginning of the year. So I'm making these in advance. So let me read the back of the book just so we're clear. Um, Young Hiram Walker was born into bondage. When his mother was sold away, Hiram lost all memory of her and was gifted with a mysterious power. Years later, when Hiram almost drowns in a river, the same power saves his life. His near death begins a daring journey of escape that takes him from the corrupt grandeur of Virginia's proud plantations to a desperate guerrilla cells within the wilderness, and from the coffin of the deep south to daring utopian movements in the north. Even as he's enlisted in the underground war between slavers and the enslaved, Hiram's resolve to reunite with the only family he's ever known burns within him. Written by one of the most exciting thinkers and writers, The Water Dancer is a propulsive, transcendent work that restores the humanity of those from whom everything was stolen. Yeah, it's going to be good. So I was listening to the audiobook and I got most of the way through the audiobook because I kind of slept. I listened to it in the middle of the night and like the audiobook is really good because some parts they sing because he's like singing like hymnals and things like that. So definitely if you listen to the audiobook in conjunction to reading the book, you definitely get more out of the experience. Alrighty. But definitely feel like I'm going to get more out of the text by reading it. Um, I think that it's because his words are so enriching that I feel like I want to read the words rather than have them spoken to me, if that makes sense. So, there's just something that you can't get from the audiobook that you get from reading it, in my experience. But to each their own. I feel like the audiobook is definitely a good experience, and you're not going to steer wrong if you only listen to the audiobook, especially if that's how you consume your books. Um, I definitely don't think that you're going to be missing out by listening to the audiobook. But for me, I think that I want to clarity, clarity, stop. I think that I definitely want to read the physical book, and I want that to be my first book of the year because um, I've put so much pressure on myself to what the first book of the year is going to be. And I think that making that decision for myself in advance makes it so that I'm not feeling the pressure of what that first year book of the year is going to be. That I'm like taking it a little bit easier on myself. So I think it's going to be okay. I think that I'm going to be okay at the beginning of the year. I think that starting with something that's because last year the first book of the year was the Britney Spears biography, and it was such a good book, and it was such an easy read, and it was something that inspired me to keep reading throughout the year. Um, so I want something like that again. That's something that will inspire me to not fall into a slump. And I feel like because Ta-Nehisi Coates' books are so inspiring, I think that it will kind of push me to move forward throughout the year. So that's what I have for you. We're at 14 minutes. And my cat is being obnoxious. You're being just the worst. Is it because you're hungry? Is it because you're hungry? Do you want some food? Do you want some food? Showing your butthole on camera? Okay. I'm gonna go feed my cat. He seems hungry, so I'm gonna go. I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to take your library books back or read them. Okay, I'll see you on the next one.